All right, let's see. Haha. Just do 1,000 minor adjustments now that I'm pressing record. First, an apology. This video has been a long time coming, and now of all times, I suspect you'll need it. I'm sorry it hasn't come sooner, and I'm sorry my explanations were relatively weak in helping you comprehend the kinds of magic are in Thath. But let's address a kind of magic you'd feel in your very spirit, the channeling innate to Alakini. The most recurring misconception underpinning questions on how magic works in this setting is the suspicion that Alakini magic is dominion over physical elements. We'll call it dope. This is mistaken. Magic, specifically how the Alakini harness and exercise it, is not a physical discipline, but a spiritual expression with physical manifestations. What's the difference? The former, the dope misconception, addresses magic in two ways that are both erroneous in this setting. One, they view magic on a direct level that states anything definitionally fitting within the element is that element. For example, ice, mist, and steam are all states of water, and so they fall under the element water, and anyone who controls water must also control ice, mist, and steam. Two, they view magic on an atomic level, which squarely places magic in science. This states that the element Earth pushes a myriad of chemical elements, such as carbon, and anyone who controls the element Earth must also control carbon, calcium, and iron, etc. These both treat the elements like they themselves are analogous to dominion over physical elements, instead of treating these elements as metaphysical reflections of your spirit. Remember, in Thath, earth, wind, and fire, and water aren't elements. Bruka, Ea, Kayeke, and Vajuri are. The former is a set of physical elements. The latter is a set of spiritual elements. To break this down, let's rewind to the beginning. Remember when you took a very strange personality quiz? Your responses were a reflection of your spirit. And your spirit determined your elemental affinity. That is, which elements were most connected to you and by how much. Your spirit has ties to the elements here. But does that mean your spirit has ties to earth or wind or water or fire? Yes.
And absolutely not.
The foremost facts here are this. Your spirit has ties and affinities to the spiritual elements. Those spiritual elements have affinity over physical elements, and your expression in those physical elements are tied to the nature, no pun intended, of your spirit. Ashoka have a broad and weak connection to the spiritual elements, and therefore they have a broad and weak influence over earth, wind, fire, and water. So it's not unusual to see a godling erupt a small earthen wall with some force, because things infused with Bruka tend to be stubborn and slow to change. It's not unusual to see the mother's children wash away tensions and cool hostilities within themselves and others. It's not unusual to see an Ashoka with a strong affinity for Kayeke to burn themselves out doing a move because they refuse to let cost determine their limits to their ambition. It's not unusual to see an Alakini release their handle on a situation and freely act. These are the more base applications of our spiritual elements, and these physical applications are reflections of the spiritual aspects of our magical elements. Now, the stronger the influence, the more direct its effect, the more potent its effects, the more specific its application, the stronger, more committed, more specific the spiritual conviction must be. Start considering these elements metaphysically to more clearly know whether your character would actually do this, and that will determine a bunch of if they could actually do this. Your elemental affinity is a statement of your character's spirit, and great statements require great foundations and great evidence. Let's walk through some examples of this. What are the metaphysical implications of the element necessary for person 1 to push a heavy, semi-permanent, and solid object? Or for person 1 to endure or resist a forceful push themselves. Perhaps person 1 has a fixed spirit that is both headstrong and unyielding in their energy. That is to say, maybe person 1 has big Bruca energy. You can probably see how this applies to the other elements. So let's sophisticate this a bit. What would be the metaphysical implications of an element necessary for person A to override person B's motor controls by forcing person B's body to obey person A? What kind of person would do that? What must someone's spirit look like to do this? This is bloodbending. Water is ruled by and is subsumed by Vajuri, the element of intuition, of reservation, of heart, of compassion. But bloodbending, an aspect that would certainly fall under the umbrella of water manipulation, and therefore Vajuri, is absolutely not about intuition, reservation, heart, and compassion. Bloodbending hijacks someone's body without their consent, and it's well within the reach of Alakini. So what could justify an Alakini who was highly attuned to Vajuri completely subverting the aspects that define so much of both that Alakini and that Vajuri's nature? It's a good question. Have you become that person? Are you in your core that kind of person? Have you established yourself as so? Do you have that affinity for Vajuri, and do you have that spirit to do that to someone? Your role play matters here, and your history of role play determines how you may express yourself spiritually and what kind of impact you may have on the forces of the world and others magically. Let me know if this makes sense. I'm totally down with answering some questions and demystifying some uncertain areas that I may have missed or unintentionally obscured or obfuscated. Well, anyways, until next time on Thath, or something like that. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Well, anyways, until next time on Thath. See you Friday.